Hey!
Hey.
Day of the Tentacle.
Mm-hmm.
Have we already talked about this game? It's awesome. Should have Dave here.
He was here.
Oh man, your mouse pad. This has seen some use.
Oh god, this is gross. I never even thought about that. My Day of the Tentacle pad, which was like a marketing sample of something we never made.
Here it is.
Look how disgusting that is. I've used that mouse pad for 20 years.
The sheer sort of horror of this comes across well on camera.
Day of the Tentacle is the first game I was co-project leader on. Or project leader of any kind, along with Dave. We just had to figure out what we were doing, and we didn't really have any ideas for games. And they're like, how about a sequel to Maniac Mansion? We're like, yeah, we'll take it. We'll do it. And we'll do it together. So we're scared to do it. It's really scary to run a project and think you got an idea and be like, this is my idea and I'm gonna run it. Have you seen this? When was the last time you saw this?
I was telling somebody, I think it was probably around the time I met my wife, maybe.
So you met a girl and then you stopped playing video games?
No, I mean, I think I trotted it out to try and show her what I did for a living. And she wasn't that into it.
When we started this talk about remastering the old games, I was thinking about all the games that I'd worked on, Grimm and Throttle and Day of the Tentacle. It was always sad that you couldn't play those games legally. They're like just not available anywhere. And the fans did a really good job of keeping them working. But there's things that only we knew, like where all the concept art is and what things were supposed to look like and sound like and what they sounded like before they were compressed or edited. And I was like, I think we can find all that stuff and we can add commentary and things like that only the people who actually worked on it could add. Oh, this is something when we were up-resing the graphics, we couldn't tell what that striped green thing was, Peter.
Where?
Next.
Oh, that's Jello.
That's Jello. With Dot, we had a lot of freedom to just repaint everything. Repaint every frame of animation. We wanted that style, but just a higher fidelity rendering of it. And have the old version still intact, as it was exactly.
How did that originally look? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of, as you can see, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of, it's the same, but it's a little sharper.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I bet like the original guys, they were like, oh yeah, this is wicked mountain right here. It's like, oh, this is cool. And like, oh yeah, look at all the awesome definition. And we're all like, yeah, it's just like a bunch of wicked shapes, you know? To me, they're just a bunch of wicked shapes.
So this lobby was the room that we used as kind of our art test room. This required a lot of back and forth with Peter, and he created a style guide that we used to render all the rest of the scenes. Yeah, like that text there, I asked Dave Grossman, what would that say? And he said, this is exactly what that would say. You know, before where it was just some squiggly lines and, you know, a few pixels, we're able to actually add that.
And these are all just based totally off of the originals. We had draw-overs done of the original characters. Larry Ahern did those for us. Just trying to stay true to the originals. We all loved the animation already. I mean, it was just such great animation. Has a great feel to it, and we didn't want to change that at all. There's just no reason to change it, but just repaint every frame. My hope was that the game looked like how you remembered it. So hopefully we just wanted to stay true to it.
How's Day of the Tentacle, Oliver? Psych. Oliver's muted. He says it's good. Oliver says it's good. Good to hear from you, Oliver. How's it going?
It was a lot of fun. You know, I really would like working on these old LucasArts adventure games because it kind of is interesting to see the history of, you know, how games were made 15 years ago.
It's going into submission
on Thursday.
On Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah? You can't. Gotta be perfect. Aaron. Perfect. Don't f this up.
Some of those, even in the original game, which were really interesting because the original code base that we have access to is about as old as I am. And so there's a lot of interesting things to look at there. It was kind of like archaeology. It was like looking back at these old, ancient ways of doing things and trying to understand the past and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, you know, being gentle and trying not to break what you find, and yeah, things from Tim himself, actually. And so there's a small script in the game, so in the opening credits, it would randomly choose whether to say Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman, or Dave Grossman and Tim Schafer. And I'm trying to remember exactly what the comment said. It's something along the lines of, age before beauty or beauty before age or something along those lines. And that was what was used as like the variable to determine whether or not Tim's name would show up first.
But a lot of the kind of issues and kind of complications later on to ship this game come from things that were easy to do back 15 years ago, but now, ironically, now are actually much harder to do.
So in the original Day of the Tentacle, the entirety of Maniac Mansion was included in Day of the Tentacle. And the way that the game achieved this is it would literally, it would just launch that game as like a separate process on the person's computer. It just launch it like another program. The way that we're doing this remaster, we don't really have the ability to do that, especially when we're releasing something like on the PS4 or the PS Vita. Every part of the game needs to be self-contained in one process. But we got that all fixed up. And even added a nice little menu to it, so you can go and use the computer in his room, and you have your own separate save file from your Maniac Mansion that gets attached to all your stuff.
The fans would be really disappointed if we didn't include it. I'm glad they made it work. We always said if we ever did a new Day of the Tentacle, like Maniac Mansion 3, that we'd wait for a time where we could put all of Day of the Tentacle inside of this third game. So maybe that time is now. We can play a game within the game within the game. That'd be awesome. I have a title for it, but I've never told anyone, so I won't tell you guys.
Oh.
Okay, I'll tell you guys, but you can't put it in the documentary.
Of course not.
And then we were able to go through and do things like we found the original recordings for a lot of the audio, because the audio in the original release was heavily, heavily compressed.
Hands off that hamster. He belongs to Weird Ed Edison.
I don't know if it's easy to pick up, but there's just all this noise.
Day of the Tentacle was, we call it the first talkie, because it was like the very, very first fully voiced game.
And that was not the original plan to do voice at all.
No.
We were not going to do it, and while we were making the game,
human voice was invented.
You know, this is day one of recording for Day of the Tentacle for Richard Sanders playing the part of Bernard.
From the top. Dr. Fred and Dead Cousin Ted are both in there.
In order to start from the highest sample rate quality, the only way to do it was from the original DAT tapes. Mainly it was like full recording sessions from all of the actors. And they were all there, but it would have been nice if they were broken up into like, you know, characters or just a little more organized, but it was all there at least, you know.
Forensically, this is some big history going on, so we need some help with this. This is pretty delicate.
Mm-hmm.
When you're putting those tapes down, by the way, for storage purposes, you should always keep them edge up.
Oh, good to know.
Any tape format should always be stored with the tape horizontal to the gravity.
Good to know.
That way the weight of the tape, which doesn't seem like very much, doesn't crush the control tracks of the tape.
This is why we called you.
Yep. And I just had to listen to every line, and there'd be like 2 or 3 takes for each line, so listen really carefully to the one from the game, make sure I nailed that one. And there were times where you could tell they spliced it, and it's really like, oh, wow, this doesn't sound like either take. Oh, okay, I gotta fix this, so it took a lot of meticulous listening. There's just like so many peppered lines throughout like Bernard's where it's like, here's 4 Laverne lines and here's 2 Hoagie lines, but they're labeled like, you know, 51_GUA_Bernard. It's like, why? What's happening? Oh, she's like, okay, I gotta find the Hoagie session and figure out in the script where that is, cut that, then jump back and start going through Bernard again. There was always this like, oh, I can't find a line. I better scan the back of this room or section and see if they did a pickup, you know, and it's like, God, there it is. Like, yeah, if you hear the difference, like back and forth, it's quite an upgrade.
You and the clown were having a party? You and the clown were having a party?
And believe it or not, when you actually like emulate the game and run it, it sounds even worse. It's actually really refreshing to hear these lines uncompressed. I think people are gonna really like what it brings to the characters, and you're gonna hear a lot of nuances you never heard before.
Besides cleaning up everything, repainting it, making it sound better, we have a great concept art browser that has a lot of the scans we got from the archives. So people can look at that for the first time. I don't think any of that has ever been printed or shared in any way. There's a beautiful archive at Skywalker Ranch, which is temperature, humidity controlled, amazing, and they have Darth Vader's suit and all this stuff in there. And I got to visit that once when I was there, and it was really cool. Like, oh my God, I remember these old flat files and pulling them open. It was like everything, like the big, wide markers that Peter Chan had done for the opening shot of Day of the Tentacle, and the full throttle stuff is in there. just all these, and all the other games, the Indiana Jones games, Mortimer and the Riddles of the Medallion, and like all those games were just all stacked up in there.
Yeah, so here's the example of the opening shot from the game. And you can even see on the far right side, that was the detail that was originally cut from the game, but we were able to add back in for the remastered version.
Peter Chan, there's a ton. Like, this concept art browser could be amazing. Did Peter do a color painting of every room? Yeah.
What was it like, Peter, that you guys would do these beautiful paintings? I mean, just gorgeous pen and ink and watercolor sometimes. And when you then saw it scanned and in the game, did you have any feelings like, oh my God, look what ended up happening?
Oh yeah, and the reason for the way Day of the Tentacle looks is because of Monkey Island 2 and how it translated and how technology back then just mutilated my illustrations. And so for the next round, I knew to overcome that challenge was to simplify the backgrounds, to make it look like it was supposed to be this way. And so for this game, definitely learning how to let go and go outside my comfort zone, right? How to be wrong on purpose. But you know, I knew in the end it was going to be okay because that was what we chose to do together.
And I feel like it's like these are in some ways we're approaching them like historical documents, you know, and this is like an opportunity that you don't, you know, it's been many years since this came out, and we don't get. It's not like this comes up all the time. So we really want to get it right. We really want to be like, this is the definitive version of this game.